嘿，大家好。
大家好，我们又见面了。
今天晚上我们要 listen to podcast number 2 of the history of China. The English title is Origins 2, 5 Emperors and 12 Islands.
那我再翻译一下好了，就是我们今天开始听我们第二个广播，它那个名字叫做5个帝王和12个岛屿，我也不知道是什么意思，所以我们接下来听一下到底是说了什么。
I can't wait to find out.
Okay.
Hello, and welcome to the history of China.
Okay, 你再问我。
问什么
The question you just asked me.
What question?
有意思吗？
哦，喂。
No, just ask me. Question.
Hello， 我们终于听完了这个长达27分钟的一个广播，所以你觉得怎么样？有没有什么意思的地方？
在开始的时候，我觉得哇，这个没有上一次有意思，可能有一点无聊，然后我有一点后悔了。我们这次做这个，然后后来我觉得越来越有意思，然后最后我觉得哇，这个非常非常有意思，我很喜欢听这个。
比如呢？你没有说你的想法，哪些地方有意思呢？
Okay, so he's saying that, he's saying that there's this myth of 天和地分开了, right?
Yep.
And it could be easy to just say, oh, this is just a story. This isn't history. This isn't truth or facts.
Yeah.
Except that he's saying, what if, while there's parts of it that are obviously just a story, just myth, it might represent truth, some truth as well. In that, this was also the time that the emperor kind of organized. He mentioned that he organized religion a little bit. It was not so like sui bien, everybody just believed whatever, but there was like worship became a little more organized and formal and also a little bit more state government controlled because of that. But he's saying that before that point, any household that could hire their own shaman, like their own spiritual person, could have direct contact through that person with heaven. And so every rich person, every poor person, everybody, whatever, as long as you had a shaman, you were okay. But in the organizing of it, it also meant that the more powerful and the more wealthy people had closer access to heaven than the poor people. They were the ones who could afford a shaman. They were the one like that it in the organizing of religion, it also created this people with connection to heaven and the authority that gives them and the privilege that gives them and the right of responsibility. Like these people are chosen by heaven to be the ones with money. These are the people that are chosen by heaven to be the rulers. And all of these other people are not chosen. They're the poor people. They are not the ones that have the access. And he also is saying that if every household, every person, Sui Bian, could talk to heaven directly, to Shangdi directly, that they could also ask Shangdi directly, do you really think this person should be emperor? Is this really the best person? But because all of these poor people now are not able to have direct access to Shangdi, it also means that they don't, in theory, have any way to ask those questions. To ask, is this really heaven's will that this emperor be emperor? That this happen in our nation, right? They are cut off from the authority of heaven and the power that heaven gives people.
这个就让我想到西方的古代其实差不多一样的情况，都是一些少数人有钱了或什么开始掌控整个开始统治，然后他们会 用现在的话来说，可能是一种垄断嘛。就是我要统治你，就是我不要让你，就像以前说罗马那个罗马教那个天主教一样，就是只有教皇或者少数一些人才可以和那个神和上帝才可以有关系，所以中国的历史传说也是，
他也说了很多的，
对，也是这样的。
like 一样的时间的 cultures around the world also would people in power would make those kinds of changes in whatever religion they had as well to bring the power of heaven close to the power of
对，是少数的有钱的有权的，他们开始统治，开始制定规则，所以我觉得这个确实。
还有 I was thinking about like and 他说了 like so many other especially ancient cultures, you would see the same pattern where the powerful, the rulers, 有钱的, they would make kind of cut off the rest of the people from access to religion, access to God, whoever that God would be for that culture, and therefore kind of insulate themselves from anybody else saying, oh, God wants me to be the ruler. And the only people who could listen to God would be the ones who would already be supporting that ruler and that the power structure that was there in the society, and kind of creating this, these people have money, these people have power, everybody else doesn't. And I was thinking about how like even the current Queen of England, the religious structures have changed a lot, but they believe that she rules, the whole idea is that she rules with, that's the will of God, that she is the queen, and that family is the kings and queens of England. And certainly at the start of that, there was that kind of structure with the popes and the Catholic Church where you needed the priests who read and could perform Mass in Latin. The Bible was in Latin, and the common people couldn't read Latin, couldn't do Mass, needed that go-between between them and heaven. And the Pope and the priests and the Catholic Church also created and perpetuated this idea that God had chosen the kings of England to rule, that they were under God's blessing. And so it was a very similar structure in Europe, and not just the kings and queens of England, but many kings and queens and rulers around the world, would create this similar cutting off of the majority of people from the authority and the ability to communicate with heaven themselves. So I thought that was 这个非常有意思。
对啊，这个我也是第一次知道，但是从整个中国历史或是人类历史来说，我觉得都是一样的，就是千百年来就没有变过这个规律。
Another thing that I thought was really, really interesting and was something that obviously I understand about Chinese culture, but I had no idea where it came from. And that is the tradition of not wanting to seem like you want something when maybe you really do want something, and the idea that you try to give me something and I say no, and you say, here, let me give it to you, and I say no, and and so the third time, after saying no 3 times, then if you ask again, then, oh, you really want to give it to me and I can really take it now. And that apparently came from the idea of Yao and Shun, right? And so Yao invited Shun, who was a nephew or something like that, but not his son, to be co-emperor and then eventually emperor. But Shun, the empire at the time because of all the flooding of the Yangtze and the Huang River.
Huanghe,
Yeah, Huanghe was like a mess. And the Gung had been trying to solve it with dams, but it wasn't working. And for years and years, it had been getting worse and worse and worse. And so Shun, for maybe that reason and maybe other reasons, says, no, thank you. And it created this tradition that the emperor should not, a good emperor or a person fit to be emperor should not actually really want to be the emperor, and also now perpetuated this very unlike normal and everyday part of Chinese culture of the polite thing is to decline.
是的，这是我们中国文化里面的那个谦让，然后客气。
Yeah.
我觉得就是从这个地方来的，
Yeah.
就是我们很谦虚，谦让就是我们会说不要，所以这些让我
当然了解客气，但是我不知道从哪里来的。
所以这个就让我想到以前就是，特别是学英语的人，或者是有外教或是接触过西方文化的人，就是可以知道说，有一个外国的外教说是邀请学生去他家里做客，然后就是因为中国人很客气，他会问你说你要水吗？然后中国人说不要，我不渴。然后老外他真的不会给你水。然后我们中国人可能就习惯了，可能我们会去中国人家里做客，会说你吃过饭了吗？我吃过了，我不饿。然后他会再问一次，你吃过了吗？好，给你吃点嘛。然后要反复几次以后，然后才会开始。所以这个是中国人的那个谦让嘛，我觉得。
然后这个也是因为 he said like Yao is seen as like the model of like a very good emperor.
对。
And
他很谦虚。
yeah, and then Shun also was good, and so is this dynamic of these two
对。
非常好的人, and this is how they did it. So now 所有的中国人一样的。然后 the other thing that I thought was really, really 有意思的 was the idea of the 12 islands, which when you heard that in the title.
就是我刚才看那个题目说12个岛，其实我没有想那么多。等那个听完以后，后来我想到，我们中国以前会称我们有很多的称呼，比如说像华夏，然后也会称为神州。然后我从这里那个州那个岛我终于明白为什么说12个岛，就是我们神州大地嘛，会分为12个州。
因为 the flooding
对
was so bad that every year the 华夏 kingdom would be broken up into 12 islands, and so it's very difficult to be one ruler of 12 different islands for a period of time. You don't know when the flood water will go down, so you don't know when you will reconnect your power with the place, and so he created 12 prefectures, 州.
对。
and then 然后如果你们喜欢我们做这个，要鼓励我，还有鼓励他，你们可以给我们一个 thumbs up， 然后 like and subscribe share， 所以我们可以 continue 学习。
OK， 谢谢大家，
拜拜，
拜拜
下次见。